Hello, everybody, and
Great.
welcome to one of our very rare sessions over here at ShipWreck Cove. This is a Rum and Rambling session sponsored very much by Blue and Alan. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this all goes. Today we have our guest, which is Generative, led by ZK as well as his team. And I believe you have Cobb with you today. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Fantastic. So, very much looking forward to hearing about this project. I've had a little time to look into it, not as much as I'd usually do, but it should prove a very, very interesting talk today for most of the Cove. So, crack open a drink with me, gents, and let's get on with it. Right. First things first, would you two like to introduce yourselves? Just tell us a little bit about what you do and why you've started a project now.
Sure. Yeah. Before I kind of do the intro, same format. Ganyo, thanks so much for allowing us to have this forum. Shipwreck is pretty fantastic. I also wanted to kind of acknowledge. I see a lot of familiar faces from our community here listening. Just absolutely love the support. Shout out to Near, Holder Zen, Clippy. So I see a lot of familiar people here. So again, we have a fantastic community. Thanks so much for joining. Um, I'm ZK. I've been running a dev shop for many years. Been kind of providing Web 2, Web 3 development services, both DeFi as well as NFT marketplaces. We would provide development support, but we decided to this was the right time for us to launch our own product. We're coming off of a successful business-to-business enterprise AI exit in commercial aviation. That kind of wrapped up in 2019. Yeah, that project is with computer vision, machine learning. It runs globally on multiple continents. So we're not new to the AI space. We're not kind of jumping on the AI hype train. We've been working on this for quite some time in artificial intelligence. Uh, we do run a team that's local here, so it's not completely all decentralized in terms of people. I think that's important when launching a product. But as we grow, I'm sure the team will become more and more decentralized. I've known Cobb for about 8 years now. We ended up working in a co-working space together, so we have a lot of experience working through difficulties, problems, challenges, both technical as well as market ones. So with that said, I'll kick it over to Cobb to intro himself.
Yeah, thanks, CK. Um, yeah, I mean, you kind of introed a lot of our past history is the same, but like you said, we've known each other for quite some time. We met at a co-working space, kind of both running similar Web 2 like development companies, and just eventually, from working together on a kind of company to company basis, eventually made sense to merge our forces and put it all under one roof, and we did just that. We've been working together ever since. Had a great chance to work on a lot of different things, but through market timing and other forces, we found ourselves in a position to launch Generative, which is where we are now. So we should probably get into what that actually is, and how we see Generative. So, Generative is really a decentralized AI app store. That's kind of the long-term vision. But today, users can generate art from our catalog of text-to-image models. For those who aren't aware, I'm sure you've seen this functionality all over the place. But essentially, you can enter in a prompt. You could say something like, I want to see a piece of corn in a field being eaten by a zombie, and the AI will automatically and kind of magically even output an image that represents what you've asked it to do, right? It kind of usually very quickly, and also in whatever art style you would like. So on our platform, you can take essentially whatever you can imagine and immediately list it as an NFT in a gasless fashion, and of course then receive royalties and other forms of payment from the sales of those NFTs. That's really the first element of this. That's what's available today. We also have a kind of, I think it is public at this point, but today we've actually come out of beta. So up until this point, we kind of weren't really pushing the product, let's say, but today we've dropped the beta flag, and we're happy to say and announce that this is now a production ready product and is out there.
That's awesome to hear. So, just to start everything off, then, for those who probably aren't aware, seeing as you are industry specialists, can you explain the idea of artificial intelligence, what it actually means? I know the idea is being thrown around the DeFi space quite a bit, but what does it mean, and what does it mean in the context of generative?
Sure. So artificial intelligence is really a fancy way of saying like statistical analysis at a large scale, right? So it has a lot of different forms. When I think of like the most basic artificial intelligence that you might use every day, it's probably your email inbox. There's artificial intelligence that's reading through every email that you receive. It's categorizing it. If you use Gmail, it's throwing it under promos, primary, whatnot, and of course spam. But really, it's a computer system using some model, some knowledge that it has been able to build to statistically make decisions and output things there. So how that relates to generative and how we utilize AI, there's these large models. They're called diffusion models, which have been trained on essentially every image on the internet. And they said, this is a picture of a cat, this is a picture of a dog, this is a picture of someone from an anime series. And the models have been built so you can input a prompt, like I said before, a piece of corn doing something, and it's able to understand in a statistical way what you probably want for an image to get output there. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. I mean, let's jump into the sort of very basics of artificial intelligence, because at the end of the day, there's generally accepted that there's classified as 4 types. So you have the most basic types, which is the reactive, just like you said. Basically, reactive AIs work on the model that if you are if you give it a certain input, it will give you a certain output, and it won't deviate from that at all. It's basically CA output number 1. It's a very simple model. The second one, and I think you jumped into this a little bit, is the reactive types, which is more along the lines of actually, compiling a large amount of information that's fed to it in a process called machine learning. And then this sort of jumps in onto the second scale. That AI sort of upscales and takes its responses based on the information that's sort of being fed into it. So say I fed it information up till 2021, it won't be able to tell me anything in later years, but it will be able to tell me everything that's been said before, similar to, as many of you now know, Chat GPT. And then you've got the more advanced types of AIs, the ones that we haven't really seen popping up yet, which are the self-aware type AIs, which have their own facsimile of a personality and could potentially pass the idea of a Turing test. For those of you who don't know, the Turing test is the one which dictates whether entity A is a computer or not. It's essentially a series of questions to see if that person can act and react like a human. And that's really what separates basic AIs from self-aware ones. So from what I've seen of Generative's model, this is a machine learning type AI, where it's being fed a lot of data and images, and it's using these to compile and create new images in a random fashion. And that's really what allows it to have that unique aspect that goes along with the NFT industry. Does that sort of cover it?
That's a great summary, and I think you've got a more of a categorized explanation than I did, but absolutely, that's how we see it.
I would also add, like, there's probably some subclasses there. I also kind of generalize the difference between supervised and unsupervised learning within the field as well. So there is a distinction there. And one other kind of aspect that I do believe in is as things kind of progress and technology advances, what we call AI now being like just an absolute buzzword, just like the past decade, whether it's like
Absolutely, yeah.
cloud computing really is just someone else's computer. When we're kind of talking about that, what will happen is, and Cobb probably agrees as well, we'll see a change, and what we call AI now would just be basic computing. And then, as it advances, that, whatever is slightly at a grasp, like, you're kind of talking about theory of mind or self-awareness, more unsupervised type of learning neural nets. That's going to be kind of like the next stage of what we call AI. So that particular label, I think, changes over time.
It really does, and that's one of the things I wanted to clarify in this R&R with you guys, since, well, from what you told me, you guys have worked in this industry and you do understand what's going on. It's one of the sort of core issues with classifying artificial intelligence. We've had them for ages. We just don't acknowledge the fact that there are more than one that we're aware of. And when that happens, we treat the new ones with a bit of hostility, perhaps. And that's really the crux and ethos of a lot of the ethical arguments that jump up around them. But let's talk generative AI now a bit, because that's why we're here today. So essentially what this does is it allows any user with a wallet connection on Ethereum to make a gasless transaction and to create their own NFT. Is that about it?
Exactly. You got it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, my question for this is, based on the fact that you are developing this technology, and I do think it's a step forward, what do you think this will mean for media creators and people who create NFT sets like hand-drawn art? Will this be a tool that helps them, or is it going to be a tool that is maybe a step back for them and their profession, especially in the crypto industry?
Yeah, maybe I could start by actually talking about the state of AI art in general, like the state of the industry.
Yeah,
I had
sure.
mentioned and kind of where these models come from. A lot of large corporations have essentially, like I said, scraped the internet or used large labeled data sets of images to create these models. And in that data set has included a lot of artists' work from the internet, from DeviantArt, from ArtStation, from personal blogs and whatnot, kind of without their permission. And they've kind of just used that. There's some lawsuits going, currently ongoing right now, that are, kind of questioning, should someone's data be included in that? So can you include just any art that's on the internet in these models to generate new works? So there's that element of it as well. And that's really how we got the original conception for this idea. Because, yes, you can generate NFTs, but ultimately our vision here is to empower artists to actually make their own AI models and license them on our platform so that they can earn royalties from the models that they create. Because the current business model of these large AI companies is essentially steal the artist's work, and then there's just no means of compensation for them. There's no hope that they might one day get some form of compensation for their work that went into it. So we thought, hey, like maybe we could change that business model, empower artists to make it, give them a just means of making money by producing one, and be supportive of it in that way.
And to kind of further on Cobb's comment there, I've been talking to a bunch of artists, and I kind of changed the whole thought process. I said, what if Adobe Photoshop kind of branded this as their own product, and you were able to, as an artist, upload like all of your work, all of your media that you've created, and you now like use it as a tool, like whether it's content to wear fill or something in Photoshop. And you clicked on it, and then let's say you had a client that requested, hey, can you kind of make this particular piece in this setting? You type it in as a prompt, and because Photoshop has been trained based on all of your work, you end up like speeding up your workflow. You're able to kind of produce more work, and then you do the final touches on the work and then submit the work as your own. I don't see this being very much different. And I think that's why Generative has a unique value proposition here, is because we do believe in that methodology of open source AI models, not being closed ones where they're scraping the internet, taking all of these works and just kind of reproducing it. So the idea here is make it more accessible, where artists or content creators can use these tools and opt in and opt out based on the projects that they want to be associated with, whether it's, ethically, what those projects stand behind, or a number of different reasons. So that's why we believe OpenAI is the answer for that.
Yeah, I certainly saw an option on your website of a BYOA button, so bring your own art. So it really does exemplify that message that you're pushing forward. If they don't bring in their own art, however, how has this AI sort of been trained, and where is it getting these sources from?
A lot of
Right.
these models are built off of like the existing open source models, and we anticipate that as we grow, as artists hear what mission we're on, they will contribute to these models producing their own and using essentially use our platform to allow people to interact with our models and like I said before, sell some art from it, earn royalties. And really, you have to think about this from a technical perspective as well. Is the technical means for an artist to do this on their own and then potentially launch a business around it is a very difficult thing for them to do. They shouldn't, you shouldn't need a computer science degree to kind of figure out how to do this. Never mind, set up a site to host it, and then generate images is quite complicated from that as well. It's something that we just don't see being feasible for your everyday artist, and we're aiming to help solve that.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I can certainly see why that would be an issue in the grand scheme of things, especially with AI art. Um, how about the artistic variance? Do you think this will help elevate artists' work in a way that allows them to create more complex art that's really representative of their style? I heard you say, obviously you take a lot of the open source projects, take a lot of art from the internet, and basically just feed it into their program to see what can be generated. Do you think at some point these tools will essentially help replace, the paintbrush and easel when it comes to creating something?
Yeah, I believe it's going to be a tool. Very much, yes, it's going to make things more competitive, and it's going to commoditize things. We've already kind of seen that. Take Spotify as an example. Yes, there's AI algorithms in terms of like ranking and sorting based on people's preferences, but even a platform like that, I wouldn't even be able to listen to every piece of music that's on that platform, not in my lifetime. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's just growing, and it's just we're going to kind of see that, and I'm going to kind of slightly plagiarize a spaces that I was on yesterday talking about AI art, but I genuinely believe that the era of modern art is over. What's going to replace it? I don't have a specific answer to that yet, but
Well, let's just
what
call
we
it what it is.
understand.
It's postmodern art, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
this it's the
absolutely.
stuff that's created after what the modern age has produced. Gone is the time of the Renaissance, the um, silk-like statues of Grecian sculptures, and now we're moving on. Well, they moved on to paintings, then they moved on to abstract art, and now really what we're seeing is a new form of art style, a form of digital art style that's generative, pun intended, rather than something that is made by physical hands. It's something that really boggles the mind, and I suppose that in itself is an artistic concept.
It does, and what ends up happening is I believe you're going to have kind of the really fantastic pieces of true creativity be pushed up, but the ability for somebody to kind of come in with an imagination, like the barrier is much lower now, which honestly, comparatively to our options, which are endlessly scrolling apps, or TikTok or something like that, where we're just endlessly consuming content. Why not have people be able to kind of create with just some thoughts?
No,
And I
precisely.
don't
One
think
of the
it
things that I had sort of against the whole idea of AI, well, not AI art, but just art in general, is that for some people it's immensely restrictive, either on a budgetary concern for the materials that they need, or just a skill concern where they've tried to learn it, they've tried to train themselves in it, but they just don't measure up. There's
Mhm.
I hate to say it, but there's very little natural skill. AI art actually opens up the possibility for everybody to express themselves on a free and open platform. And that's something we all like in a decentralized world. It's something we love in crypto, for everybody to have their fair say and to be able to do what they like on chain.
Absolutely. Actually, one of our resident generative artists is here in the space, Ashu. Apologize, I didn't acknowledge you, but maybe I didn't see you when I was scrolling through. But Ashu, in real life, has actually spent 12 years as a poet. He's actually started taking his poetry, putting it into the prompts, and getting like incredible pieces out of it. So maybe like using different mediums, like you say, whether it's paintbrush or whatever, these different sources are going to produce something new.
It's all just a source of perspective, but enough on the philosophical side. Let's actually get into the concept of generative. So there's a million and one art pieces on here. I've been scrolling through since I heard about it on Tuesday, and I can see a load of new stuff has been minted. Are those by your community?
Yeah, so all of that's done by our community. It's like you said, it's as simple as connecting a wallet and someone just going and generating, essentially whatever they want. You may have also noticed that some of them are around particular themes. Every day we actually run a contest where we post up a theme. Today's theme is actually a fantastical pet. We encourage people to go and try and generate whatever it is they imagine being a pet. Again, you can generate it with the ability to generate any type of image. It's really your imagination is the limit here. We've seen some fantastic entries already. It is a 0.1 ETH prize as well if you happen to get picked for the best one. So we encourage people to head over and just give it a spin. Hook up your wallet. Doesn't cost anything. You don't even need any, like, it could be a totally brand new fresh wallet. I understand there's people don't want to connect their wallet to anything, so it could just be a totally empty brand new wallet as well.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And I can see people are actually creating their own collections using this bot as well. And that's always been very interesting for me because it sort of gets away from the idea that you have one base model and then several overlays that make a unique NFT, such as the earlier models of, say, the apes NFTs that came out from Yuga Labs. And now on the side, I'm seeing a wide variety that fall into a single collection. And all of them are really fundamentally very different from, a single base model.
Yeah, and I think one of our favorite collections, actually, Clippy, here the audience shout out there. He went through and made a album of all the presidents in the Spider-Verse theme. And that's one that, again, we wouldn't have expected someone to go through the work of actually generating every U.S. president, and it's up there and they're listed available for sale. It's just incredible to see what people are making today on our platform.
Sure, and a lot of the art that you're generating now, it looks fascinating, and I could be searching through this for ages. I can see all the pets that people have been posting. It's absolutely adorable. Some of them are with rainbows, some of them are just flat out horrific and will haunt me forever. But that's the joy of an AI platform. It is a very mixed bag. You don't really know what you're going to get until it comes out. So we've talked a
like
little
to,
about the.
I was going to say, we like to look at it as, not everyone can be a great artist, but a great artist can come from anywhere, right? And really what you're saying there, it really encapsulates that. Some of the art is just fantastic. It really is.
Exactly. And I do like the fact that it takes out a lot of, well, it doesn't take out the uncertainty, but there is a sense of suspense, even for the artist, when they try to use AI generated stuff, because they don't exactly know what's going to come out. They have one image in their head and they get something completely different. And it could be better or it could be worse than really what they have. So, skipping past the generating thing, because I think we've talked about it enough. Um, Talk a little bit more about your project. I see on your website you actually reference down to models, and as you mentioned earlier, you encourage artists to submit their own models. How does this play into how your AI grows, and especially how your project grows?
Well, over time, there's going to be a lot of people making models, a lot of different corporations doing it. Um, there's right now there's really good generic models that are kind of good at doing, you know, everything across the board, right? What we're going to see is over time, artists and other people are going to be able to train better models for smaller niches, for very specific things, whether that's an art style, whether it's maybe for like an NFT collection or something else. And as the platform grows, as people get better at making models and figuring out what exactly goes into training a good model, we're just going to see better and better ones over time. And from there, the next evolution of this is also we have plans for a distributed GPU network, because the other side of this is the images have to come from somewhere. It's very GPU intensive to actually generate these images. So part of our network here is also a system to generate these images in a decentralized fashion, so that an artist can just release a model to the world. They can sit back and have other people actually run the infrastructure to generate them. Other artists are going and interacting with them, and there's this whole ecosystem of images being generated, models being created, models being improved, and under the hood, there's this massive, decentralized GPU network that's actually doing the calculations and the output for it.
That's fascinating, actually. So explain a little bit more about this decentralized GPU network. So I assume you're running multiple nodes in order to get that to work. Is the effort split between the nodes, or is so? For example, if a new task comes on, it's directed towards a let's say a less computationally burdened node. So if all the other nodes are busy, is it directed towards one of those?
So
How does that work exactly?
For sure. So it's currently under development. I don't want to give away too many details at this time. Currently, we are running a lot of the infrastructure on our own, but we are actively working on the rollout of this distributed network. It's in our stage 2, stage 3 of our roadmap.
Hey, listen, I won't ask too much. That's enough information for me, for now at least. I am looking forward to seeing what you do with that, because that's something that's a little step ahead of all the, Telegram AI bots that you see popping up now and then. A lot of them have their basis, or at least steal a large amount of code from things like ChatGPT or things like that. You don't see many create something on a Web 2 platform with Web 3 connections. It's certainly refreshing, I'll say that. And I
For
can see
sure.
why, you're going across a
That's
lot of different things.
with the end game of decentralization and true decentralization, we should say, it's the only way that this system would work, right? If your model exists in AWS, or if you're just hooked into some API, one day that third party might not exist, right? But if it's opened up to a network where anybody can run the model, and it's incentivized to do so, anyone can run these little AI workloads. That is uncensorable, properly decentralized, and that's the vision.
And in that way, you get the idea of, and this is something we didn't touch on earlier, surprisingly, you get on the idea of legacy art, where instead of emulating what has come before, say from famous artists like Picasso or from Van Gogh, what you're actually doing is adding to that collection. And that's something that you can only really experience with AI art of this magnitude, essentially, where individuals are able to express themselves in one way, and if other people like it, they can continue that legacy long after that person has left the space or stopped posting. It's certainly an interesting way to view the evolution of art moving forward. From a legal perspective, there's intellectual property stuff to consider, such as copyright, patents over certain art styles, that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, design rights aside, it does present a very, very unique opportunity for people to express themselves in new ways. And that's what I like.
For sure.
Right.
What might be interesting, and I think we'll see this sooner rather than later, is an artist will essentially release a model and say, anything that this model produces, it has my signature. And they're going to say, this is a work that has come from me because it's my model. And that is something we're very excited about.
Well, the flip side for that, for me, and I think this is well, I have a legal background anyways. This is just a concern for me on that model, is if he is willing to say that and put it out in the open, then he's basically opening himself up to absolutely anything that could happen. So, for example, if his model includes human art, it could be used to create profane images or something that could harm it. And you can't sue the person who made it because it has your signature on it. It's technically your ownership. How would that reflect back onto that author? Is really, well, the person who created that art style. It's certainly something to consider and something that
For
the
sure.
legal space is going to be fighting with for quite a while. But it's going to be interesting. It's not
For sure.
particularly relevant to generative as the engine itself, but it is super interesting to see how that's going to develop in the future.
And Ganyo, yeah, that's quite astute, and I'd love to sit around and just debate and chat about that philosophy, because we are kind of at that intersection. I think that's why a lot of people are attracted to Web3 right now.
Mhm.
Because it's directly the intersection between, is it like law or is code law? And a lot of people are now kind of embracing the idea of blockchain smart contracts being law based on something that's written programmatically, rather than just various interpretation. Do the two kind of like disciplines, coincide, or are they kind of on a collision course? But yes, I'm getting a lot off topic, but it is a fascinating discussion.
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, I wrote my master's thesis on blockchain applications in a variety of different industries, institutes, and well, different mechanisms essentially that could help replace and make a lot of the things we have now much more efficient and obviously time saving. And as people say, time is money. But yeah, little off topic. Let's get on to the community questions, just so we give them a fair amount of time. If anybody has any questions in the main chat, so that's the voice chat, feel free to speak up. If not, then I'll be scrolling through chat and I'll see if I'll find anything interesting.
Yes, hello, my name is OG, and like I want to generate photos and badges, like 10 photos at a time. Can you guys add this or something?
Go ahead, Kyle.
I was going to say we love feature requests. Absolutely. The interesting requests. Would you want those to all be like related images or variations? Like, what are you thinking there?
Like, are you asking me?
Yes.
Uh, so I want to it takes time to generate one photo. Like I want to put, let's say, moon. Okay, I'm gonna write moon and it generates 10 different pictures for me. That's easier, like typing all the time.
Yeah, I love it. We'll add it to the backlog.
Something actually more immediate. We're constantly providing updates, and the community is providing a lot of input and helping us kind of craft this platform. Something short term, which will be released very soon, is the ability, after you've typed in a prompt and received an image, you can go ahead and list it, but we also now have the ability to quickly just generate it again. So, Ganyo kind of pointed it out. He loves the idea of these collections, and they generally have a similar theme. It could come from a similar prompt. So by adding that functionality, you guys should see that very soon. That kind of is a small step towards what you've suggested, OG.
Cool.
I do have a
keep it up,
question.
and we'll be off.
Sorry,
Hey,
are you
Nir.
done?
Yeah.
Oh,
Go ahead, Nir.
hi. Okay, so my question is, how would you position yourself against big marketplaces such as OpenSea or Blur?
That's a great question. We actually had that question asked of us in previous AMA, but we got new members here, so I'll take that. I believe like OpenSea itself is kind of busy battling with Blur and that kind of ultra competitive secondary market volume, working with one of ones, launching and dropping generative like 10K like PFP type NFT collections. And one of the big discussions that's happening right now is the discussion of royalties. There was a battle with OpenSea against some of the other competing marketplaces. Blur came into the market and said no royalties. They weren't going to respect the royalties of the creators. OpenSea fired back, tried to take a position of saying, hey, we're this like protector of artists and we believe in creator fees. So they rolled out a piece of software that actually allow creators to actually ban other marketplaces from selling the pieces in secondary. Blur fired back with a similar program which would ban OpenSea that didn't respect that standard. If that battle kind of kept on going, I believe like the whole NFT space would get relatively fragmented, and I don't think anybody wants to see that. So recently, OpenSea actually came back and now has kind of like surrendered and made royalties somewhat optional. I think the lowest amount is 0.5%, but it might as well be zero. I find that kind of OpenSea taking that approach and trying to kind of maintain their closed system and that one size fits all being very difficult to manage. They are going to kind of move a lot slower. If they all of a sudden started rolling out AI creation tools, I believe like their existing like regular artists that are on the platform, like that backlash would probably be 10, 50 times larger than just the royalty discussion. So I'm encouraging more people to come into the AI space. That just means better AI models. Since we're taking an open AI model approach, I welcome, like maybe OpenSea can host their AI models on Generative. I'd be absolutely open to that discussion. Yeah, like I mean, we're deciding not to actually challenge and face Blur and OpenSea in the NFT market space. Just like our discussion today with Ganyo, we're talking about changing the game and not actually kind of competing on their playing field. And I see open source software, it's always done that, like through many, many cycles of technology, going all the way back to like Microsoft and Microsoft Windows, like they've their server side, like there was a huge push on open source like server offerings with Linux, and now you see Microsoft, like they changed the game. You can run Linux in a shell. So we see something similar happening in the blockchain space.
That's pretty nice. I like your answer. I do have one more question following up what you've mentioned with OpenSea. If OpenSea came to you tomorrow with a merger offer, how would you react to that?
Yeah, I'd be absolutely open to something like that. It would accelerate our plans of being able to decentralize a lot quicker. The one area that we have noticed with OpenSea is like a lot of other kind of open AI projects. Like you hear like OpenAI, which was started with by Elon Musk. It's actually now kind of 90% owned by Microsoft, and really the going joke is OpenAI is actually closed AI. OpenSea is the same as well. They didn't start off as a decentralized NFT marketplace. I would say X2Y2 probably has contributed the most in that respect. I could be wrong. So it would have to ensure like that discussion would be in line with our vision and goals for artificial intelligence.
Perfect. I do have a question for Cobb.
Go ahead.
Are you by any chance Elon Musk?
I'm going to definitively say I'm not answering that question.
Okay. Thanks.
No problem.
Okay, so I've managed to track down a couple of questions from our community. So Blue, the co-owner of the entire lounge, has asked, how do your products differ from other AI-based image generation bots that exist already? Which I find quite ironic of him asking about artificial intelligence when you can hardly figure out regular intelligence. Anyway, off to you.
That's quite the burn to start that. Ouch. I apologize, Blue. So
It's
other
all good. I'm used
platforms,
to it.
yeah.
I get
We
bullied
you know,
daily by him.
if you ever want, you can come to our Telegram. We'll be nice to you. I hope.
Yeah, I think I need to. I'm gonna leave this place and move.
All good, buddy. All good.
I'm going to generate NFTs that follow you, man. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, anyway, I think there's definitely a lot of differences. I don't necessarily see a lot of these other AI projects as direct competition, and really starting at the long-term vision of how a actual image generation happens in this decentralized GPU network. That is just a plan that I haven't seen anywhere else, right? I would say a lot of these projects from inspection really are Web 2 companies using somebody else's API that happen to have a token. And really, I don't feel like I need to say much more than that.
To kind of further on that, we're not going to kind of slam like any particular competitors, but kind of under the public layer, most products that exist, they have other businesses. Like if I was going to say, something like Uber Eats, I'd imagine they're not just like kind of associating drivers to people who want to order takeout. There's an underlying business beyond that. They are now going to have probably the best amount of analytics on the demand on a particular cuisine or menu item in a particular area, and being able to mine that data and monetize it, I would say is probably bigger than their actual service delivery business. For us, we kind of had something similar. It wasn't necessarily on the crypto side that kind of drove us here, even though we actively working in the space. We actually kind of saw, platforms like even Web 2, like DALL-E, Midjourney, even, you mentioned ChatGPT. There's a lot of interaction with this AI, and this particular AI, what is being produced out of it kind of just ends up in this black empty sea. Nobody really kind of knows what people do with it. Some of it ends up just being a novelty for entertainment. And that's when we kind of identified that Web3 actually is a perfect fit for this, because just to try it out, NFTs, as you mentioned just like a few minutes ago, does have built-in provenance. So beyond just kind of like generating these images and trying to compete with that, by us kind of developing the NFT marketplace, we're going to try to peel back some layers and figure out exactly what's happening with these images. And it's not just like limited to NFTs. We want to kind of expand, mixed media. Sorry, not NFTs, but images. We want to expand to other mixed medias.
Okay. Thank you for that. Well, a couple of technical questions for me, but we'll skip that for the community ones. So Dolly
Hi,
asks,
sir.
do you...
Hi, sir.
Hello,
Sorry for
Mario.
interrupting. Can I ask my question, sir?
Absolutely, go for it.
Sorry for interrupting. My question is, sir, do you imagine partnering with other projects so that they can create NFT collections through your services?
Absolutely.
That was
and
I was going to ask as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and really, we see ourselves as a means to get models in front of the right people, and actually, with this decentralized network, host and generate images. So absolutely, if there's other projects out there that have a model and they want it to be easily run and turned into NFTs, absolutely do reach out. You know where to find us. I also do want to point out Nir, who came up and just asked a couple of questions a few minutes ago there, has actually launched a PFP AI project on Generative. It was kind of our first real community celebrated and community launched and driven project. It was fantastic to see.
All right. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
final-
By the way, it was free. It was basically given out for free.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So, really, one final question from me then. Do you ever think there'll ever come a point, whether from Generative, your project, or another project, that there'll come a point where AI will have developed so much that you could feed it an AI generated image and it could spit back all the sources that potentially it could have come from?
That is definitely something with the model provenance that we are actively thinking about, because you're going to care where an image came from, right? If you're going to attribute it properly back to the author, or potentially, we're talking about an AI model that's been trained on thousands of images from thousands of creators, being able to figure out a way to attribute it back to exactly which artist contributed to it, is definitely first of all, an interesting problem, but one that I think we will want to solve. And society
Sure.
will care.
Yeah, of course. And it even has its own military applications at the end of the day. Imagine sending someone a random image, and in reality, it's a compilation of documents that the image is being generated from. It's certainly a scary prospect, especially when you consider the different ways humans can use it. But definitely an exciting one. Yeah, that's about all the time we have today. Do you have any final statements or finish off? Oh, look, we've got another question actually. Let's just get this one out of the way. So, are you using the ChatGPT API, or is this your own AI model?
We're not using ChatGPT AI model. We're running our own infrastructure for this.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you for clarifying. He joined a bit late, so he didn't hear about you sort of explaining it earlier, but that's absolutely fine. Right. That'll about finish it. Thank you so much for coming in today. Do you have any last words to say to the Covians before we end off?
I briefly mentioned our challenge. Come into our Telegram, participate in our daily challenge again today. It's Fantastical Pets. We'd love to see what you will create.
All right, fantastic. I'm very much looking forward to seeing what people who have been listening in today, especially those who have been following Generative for a while now. According to you, there's quite a few of them in the Cove. I hope we get some pirate themed ones as well. I know Blue's going to be having fun with that when he gets drunk late one night. But yeah, thank you so much for coming in. Thank you for teaching us a little bit about your project, and we hope to hear a lot more about you soon.
Great. Thanks so much.
Yeah,
All right, thank you.